And welcome back. This is your man Warrior, and this is another patron roster review. This is Ewan Olary. That's right, Ewan Olary from the Star Destroyer Bomb Squad. What's happening, you guys? All right, so he's doing really well in Squad Arena. He's a bit of a dolphin, spent a little bit of money in the game for some of that highest end gear. He's been around, though, since the very beginning, and so that's why he's got a really good group of characters to work with. He knows a lot about meta, and so he's really wanting to know just basically how to tweak raid, how to tweak arena, and how to tweak ships, just a little bit on all of those, because he wants to just raise up his ship rate, his arena rate, and then do a little bit more damage in raids. That's about what most people want out of these. And so looking at your team looks awesome in every way, shape, and form, except you're going to face in the top 50 a lot of rebels, and you got to know that Emperor Palpatine is actually a detriment to you. I know it sounds like he's excellent, but without him being the leader, he actually causes his own death because he triggers all of the countering that all of the rebels have, specifically Trute and Baze, and so he's very squishy, and he ends up dying pretty quickly because of that. And so I would recommend you replace him with Sith Assassin. Sith Assassin has a stun just like Emperor Palpatine, which is very effective, but she speeds the entire team up, and to make this team really fast and really annoying, you really want to get it up faster in speed, and she's the fastest way to do it. Even if you can't get all the other characters very fast, having a fast Sith Assassin will make all your others very fast. And so definitely you want to get your Sith Assassin geared up, leveled up, and replace Emperor Palpatine. But remember, speed. And then the other thing you could do is, since you have such amazing Sith, once you get Sith Assassin geared up in some really fast speed mods, you could also replace Darth Vader or Kylo Ren with Savage. Now, you'd have to gear him up, and you'd have to get his abilities up, and you would want to Zeta him, but Savage on a Sith team is absolutely disgusting and very, very difficult to kill. Very difficult to kill. Most people end up using Darth Nihilus to kill Savage, or they have to try to, put health immunity down, buff immunity, things like that, the health down, stuff like that. It's really, really difficult, though, because every time you put a debuff on him, he gets critically hit. He just cleanses himself. So you stun him, thinking you can stun him and kill him, but the moment you stun him and then you try and crit him to kill him, he just cleanses the stun right off. And so he is absolutely brutal as a support character. His attack, though, also with Sith Assassin, if you're bringing her into your team, is amazing. She can do that special stun attack that does damage straight to health, and most of the time it will take a character down to 50% or less. And of course, he has an ability where even if they have full protection, he can kill them with one hit as long as their health is at 50% or less. So the two that are not developed that high that I would highly recommend for your Sith team, since you are still running Sith, is Sith Assassin and Savage Opress. Both of them, get Savage Zeta'd and get them both geared up. Trust me, when you have a fast Sith Assassin and a very tanky Savage, you're going to look back and go, man, why didn't I do that sooner? That is so much fun, and it's just crazy. The other option, if you decide not to go Savage and you keep Kylo Ren in, is you could, for your next Zeta, do the Wound in the Force unique. It's a great Zeta. It really just ensures the debuffing stays on the opponent, so that way your Darth Nihilus is more effective. All right, really quick, I'm just going to go through a couple of characters that you're going to need to continue to gear up for your teams. We're going to go through the Heroic AAT, and we're going to hit some of them while I do this. So let's go ahead and go through the Heroic AAT and talk about the teams. All right, for Phase 1, you're going to use Jedi. You're going to have Ima-Gun Di as your leader, Aayla Secura, Qui-Gon Jinn, Jedi Knight Anakin, and then you can either use Barasafi or Grandmaster Yoda. The way to tell which one to use is go through with Grandmaster Yoda, and if you get to the end and you're still alive at the very end of Phase 1, then you don't need Barris. But if you find you're dying before you get to the end of Phase 1, then you might need to put in Barris for the healing properties and her capability of putting defense up and the cleansing and everything else she does. One Jedi you have that I highly recommend you bring into this team, and I would recommend it be Ima-Gun Di, Aayla Secura, Ezra Bridger, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Jedi Knight Anakin. It's because Ezra Bridger brings in a ton of utility, damage, calls assists. It's like having 2 Qui-Gon Jinns in phase 1. It's amazing, and he does way more damage than even Qui-Gon Jinn does. So he is going to take your damage dealing to the next level in phase 1. Highly recommend Ezra Bridger. Try it out. For phase 2, you could use either clones or rebels, and I'll talk about phase 2 below both clones and rebels. So phase 2 and phase 4 could be clones or rebels. For your clones, you're doing a good job. You've got them going. Echo and Clone Sergeant. You need both of those. They're really necessary in this clone team, and you're going to need them up to at least gear 10. So you got a little bit of work, but not too bad. I mean, you've got Clone Sergeant 1 away from gear 10 and Echo 2 away from gear 8. So you're getting there, but you definitely want to continue to gear and develop these characters. You also want to work on Princess Leia in the meantime as well. And so with Princess Leia being taken for your clone team for phase 2 or phase 4, the Rebels team, and really I would probably do Rebels in phase 2 if you're going to use clones in phase 4, would be a wedge lead with Biggs. If you don't use Ezra Bridger in your Jedi team, you could use him in this team, which he works phenomenally well in. But you have R2-D2 down there as well. He's excellent, and even if for nothing else for Arena, I would highly recommend you get R2-D2. He's one of the top 3 best light side characters of overall usability in the game. Absolutely amazing. So get him up. But you could use your wedge lead, Biggs, Lando Calrissian for his AoE damage. Make sure you've got a modded crit chance and crit damage. Same with Wedge and Biggs, and make sure that Biggs is the fastest of those 3. And then you could use Admiral Akbar and another character, any of these additional characters that you have. Since Stormtrooper Han is going to go into phase 3, and since Princess Leia is going with your clones, you're just going to have to decide who the 5th will be. You have a lot of options with Hera and Luke and R2-D2 and Jyn Erso and Kanan. So you've got a ton of options. Just pick one that you feel like is going to do the most damage output, or if you feel like your team is not durable enough, you could use someone like K2SO. I really recommend actually K2SO over everyone because his taunt constantly triggers, and so even if they dispel, which the tank does often, it dispels the taunt will come back constantly because of who K2SO is. And so there's that option as far as the tank to keep your team alive for longer. Obviously, in a perfect world, you'd want Chirrut and Baze on this team, but your Chirrut and Baze are really, really low. So that brings me to the next point, which is for your Rebel team, you really want to star up and gear up R2-D2, Baze Malbus, and Chirrut Imwe long term. We're talking over the next 6 months for this team. You're going to want to get them 7 stars, gear 10 minimum. They're going to help you in Arena, but also in either phase 2 or phase 4 of the heroic AAT. And they do have usability even in the Rancor, especially R2-D2. So definitely want to make sure that you invest in those characters as well. Now for phase 3, I would suggest just the simple Chirpa team, the Chirpentine that they call it, with Chief Chirpa as the leader. You want to make sure that, I know that people say you don't have to level him up, but I would continue to develop him because we know that they're getting a rework now, the Ewoks, and they're probably adding some new Ewoks into the game. And so because of that, you definitely want to get your Chief Chirpa leveled up. He is right now currently the best leader in all of the Ewoks, and you know that if the Ewok rework is coming, there's a chance that you're going to have to use Ewoks for something in the game down the road. So I would definitely do that. There's also a assault battle that's out there that uses Ewoks, and so with that said, you're going to want to probably get him up higher than just gear 7. Obviously, Emperor Palpatine is going to sit on this team, as is Royal Guard, and you're also going to use your Stormtrooper Han. So you use 3 tanks with Emperor Palpatine. So Chief Chirpa, Emperor Palpatine. You could use TIE Fighter Pilot if you'd like, but you don't have to. And then a couple of tanks minimum with Royal Guard and Stormtrooper Han. But you could, instead of TIE Fighter Pilot, put in a 3rd tank for a little more durability, or TIE Fighter Pilot for a little more damage if you have enough durability. It really just depends on what works best for you. So play around with that, whether you do 2 tanks and TIE Fighter or 3 tanks without TIE. So we've discussed gearing up Ezra and some of the Rebel team like R2-D2, Chirrut and Baze, Sith Assassin, possibly Savage for that, and then of course finishing up your clones. Now let's go ahead and go into ships. So you're doing pretty well in ships. One of the things I noticed is using Jedi Consular and Wedge in your first lineup. I wouldn't. Both of those ships are good, not great. They're good. not great, meaning that they're not the best ship options for you. I would put both of them in your backup lineup, with Wedge being the second in the backup and Jedha Consular being the third, and then Ahsoka being your number one backup. So who are we going to replace those two with? Well, you're currently using your 5s, and you're currently using your bigs, and you're currently using one of your TIE fighters, but I would start to use your Scimitar and your Slave 1. So bring in the Scimitar and the Slave 1 into that initial lineup. Now, I know that your Scimitar is pretty low on power, and people are going to try to target it, but if you have your Imperial TIE fighter in your initial lineup, which you do, that will go first and should get target lock most of the time, which will instantly trigger Biggs and his taunt, and so you should have a taunt up pretty quickly, which will prevent them from insta killing anything, and that'll give you the opportunity then to lay down the Scimitar's retribution onto Biggs, stealth everyone else, and then go to town destroying the opposing team. That should work really well. And like I said, in your backup, you're going to use Ahsoka because she's just one of your better characters that you have in your lineup. Wedge and Biggs, because of how much investment in time you have in them. You may want to consider using First Order TIE Fighter either in your initial or backup because of the amount of damage he does. But if you aren't going to develop him, you're going to need to use someone like Ahsoka in that lineup. So definitely 5s, Biggs, your TIE Fighter, Slave 1 and the Scimitar, and then in your backup using Ahsoka, Wedge, and Jedha Consular. And you can continue to use Admiral Akbar as the lead ship. It's great. It's the most balanced of all the ships. Endurance is defensible. It gives the team an extra minute of life. So instead of someone killing you in 2 minutes, it takes them 3 minutes to kill you. But really, that's it. And with Executrix, if you can get to the TIE flyover where all the ties hit, yeah, it's pretty cool and it's pretty devastating, but there's just not enough synergy. There's not enough Empire ships yet. Offensively, it's great, but defensively, it's not so great. And so Admiral Akbar's ship provides enough defensibility and enough offense capability that when you're using the Biggs and the TIE Advance or the TIE Fighter target lock combo, that you should be able to do well defensively and offensively. So those are my thoughts. So Ewan, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts? Anybody else watching this, if you have some comments for Ewan and you want to leave them down below for his arena team and you feel like he needs Savage, or maybe he doesn't, or maybe you agree with me that Sith Assassin is the way to go to make this team overpowered and the characters I told him to gear up, maybe it's the heroic AAT, leave your comments down below. As always, keep your gaming on. Warrior out.